Welcome to AdventureSphere. This channel is dedicated to missing people who are missing with a vehicle. In the process of creating this database, we are creating a volunteer sonar search and recovery dive team to search for the people featured on our channel. Our services are free of charge. We ask you to consider subscribing, watch our content, and help spread awareness of our endeavor. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline can be reached by dialing 988 or 1-800-273-8255. Kirsten Joy Kryszak, then 18, is missing from Memphis, Tennessee. Her last date of contact was Monday, January 1st, 2001. She may have been in a light blue 1988 Ford Aerostar van. Neither Kirsten nor the van have been seen since. It has Kentucky license plate CYV100 that expired in 2001. The Memphis Police Department is investigating. They can be reached at 901-636-3700. Her case number is 101-00-2440. Her date of birth is November 16th, 1982. She will be 40 years old at the time of this recording. She does have a history of drug abuse. She was last seen at two different New Year's Eve parties in Memphis, Tennessee. She was with her boyfriend, Brent Wolverton, and another man, Josh Anders, when she was last seen. Both men played in Interstate, a local band, which was performing that night at one of the parties. Josh Anders stated that after the party at around 10 a.m., Kirsten asked him for a ride home. He borrowed a light blue 1988 Ford Aerostar that belonged to another guest at the party, Bradford S., goes by Tolly, Toland. They drove around for 4 to 5 hours, but couldn't find the house Kirsten was looking for, so she went to her boyfriend Brent's apartment on Clark Place. Josh claims when he walked up to the front door, Kirsten got behind the wheel of the van and drove away. Kirsten's boyfriend Brent, however, stated that Kirsten went to his apartment that afternoon with Josh and Tolly, and the three of them knocked on the door, then left. Brent went on to say that one of the men called him at around 2 o'clock to say that Kirsten had stolen the van while they were getting gas. She has never been seen or heard from again. The day she disappeared was very cold and snowy, and the road conditions were poor. Let's see. So Tolly stated that he did report the van stolen, but investigators were unable to locate the report. Kirsten didn't take any extra clothing, money, or personal belongings with her when she vanished. She was leading a high-risk lifestyle at the time of her disappearance and was involved with drugs. Kirsten had been through drug rehabilitation twice unsuccessfully. Kirsten grew up in Indiana and moved to Memphis at age 16 to live with her father. She dropped out of White Station High School. Kirsten had a history of running away from home in both Indiana and Tennessee, but she always kept in touch with her family. None of her relatives have heard from her since her disappearance, and her social security number has not been used. Although there's no evidence that Kirsten was a crime victim, authorities and her family believe she is deceased. Action 5 News on June 1st of 2011, the police stated that they're still searching for answers in the decade-old disappearance. For years, they searched for Kirsten as a missing person, but now they're investigating her case as a homicide. She rang in the new year at 2 separate house parties that were both on Avalon near Poplar in Midtown. It's the details surrounding New Year's Day that get fuzzy. An investigator stated that Kirsten stayed overnight at one party and asked for a ride to her boyfriend's home the next morning. A friend borrowed the van, but when Kirsten realized her boyfriend wasn't home, witnesses say she left her friend on the porch talking with a neighbor, got in the driver's seat, and drove away. Kirsten didn't take any of her belongings, and her roommate said that she didn't have any money. In February 2001, Earl Burgess told Action 5 News that the last time he saw Kirsten was when she left with friends for the parties in Midtown. He went on to say there was no way in the world she'd just take off without calling anyone. Kirsten's mother hired a private investigator and put up a $12,000 reward to find her daughter, and another $5,000 was added a few years back, but there's still no sign of her. So there is some posts on Reddit. I don't give them too much credit, but just to put it out there. Kirsten had asked Josh for a ride home. Josh took Tolly's Aerostar and stated they went to CK's coffee shop for breakfast, then returned to his apartment. Kirsten waited in the van while Josh showered and changed his clothes. They drove around for hours to find the house that she was looking for, but ended up going to her boyfriend's home when they couldn't find it. She got in the driver's seat as Josh got out and circled the block a few times before driving off. Josh claimed that he had to get gas twice during the drive, the drive took them through West Memphis and into Mississippi. Brent stated that he had been in a neighbor's apartment across the street the morning of January 1st and through the window saw Josh and Kirsten pull up. Brent also stated that there was a third person in the van named Sean. He watched as Kirsten went to the door, knocked, and then she went back to the van and returned to Brent's door with Josh and Sean. He saw them all get back into the van and leave. Brent said Josh called him around 2 p.m., stating that Kirsten drove off when they were getting gas. When a reporter asked her boyfriend Brent about her, he commented that he believed Kirsten died of an overdose. There was no report of the van being stolen. Kirsten was living with the man, Earl, when she had disappeared. On Web Sleuths, they said that Kirsten's case switched from missing person to homicide in 2001 after police had received new leads from the public. Kirsten's mom, Karen St. Mary, went to Memphis in March 2008 when the police announced an increase in the reward money. A witness told police he saw Kirsten near the intersection of Poplar and Highland in Midtown, Memphis. Kirsten's mom wasn't sure the blue van even existed, as no one could find it. So what you're seeing on the screen right now, I believe, is the distance from where she was on Highland and Poplar and looking for the 5-mile radius. Let's see here. But Karen had accepted the fact that her daughter probably isn't alive, just wants to know why. The reward was at $18,000. And then on scaredmonkeys.net is a transcript of a large piece put on by commercialappeal.com. I tried to find that website and it had removed the story, so I wanted to also put this in here for posterity. The van hadn't showed any activity on the VIN since 2000. The formal report could possibly have not been processed because Tolly and Kirsten were seen as friends, and Kirsten's not really the type to steal automobiles. Sergeant Barbara Olivet stated that. Tolly now refuses to talk about his past, saying that he's moved on. Kirsten has a younger sister, Ashley, who lives in Mississippi with her boyfriend and daughter, Sarah. She remembers Kirsten loving mom's ragu spaghetti and strawberry ice cream. Their parents divorced when they were little. Her dad moved to Memphis, where he still works in an auto body shop. He now lives with his new wife and their young twins. Their mom, Karen, has also remarried. When Kirsten was 13, she was already in the drug scene, possibly to cope with her parents' divorce. Could be any number of reasons, though. Let's see here. So her father sent her to Lakeside for drug rehabilitation twice. She continued using drugs, so he kicked her out of the home. That seems to be the point when she became unpredictable and self-destructive. They still see her as their little girl who would run along the shore of Lake Michigan through the sand dunes and chasing the seagulls. Karen didn't know Kirsten was missing until January 3rd, when Kirsten's roommate Earl had called her. Earl lived in Orange Mound. It's just a couple miles southeast of the Midtown area. And then back in August of 2000, Kirsten's father filed a missing person report, and then she was found in South Dakota on a road trip. She and others were busted at the time for drug possession. When Earl called Karen again on January 7th to tell her that Kirsten still wasn't home, Karen phoned the police in Memphis. Detectives were investigating her disappearance, and eventually Brent and Tolly stopped returning their calls. Their addresses and phone numbers were no longer good at some point in 2001. By 2008, Brent was discovered married and living in an apartment in South Haven. He could see Kirsten taken off to California. Kirsten traveled back home to Indiana to spend Christmas of 2000 with her family. So just in a matter of a couple of days, she went back down to Tennessee, but to be closer to her father. Part of the time when she was in Indiana, she was frantically looking for cocaine. And then the other part of the time, Kirsten, Ashley, and Karen found a moment when all seemed right in the world. The year before, Kirsten had called Ashley and sang happy birthday on the answer machine. Josh and Kirsten stayed overnight at the party at Tolly's brother Bobby's apartment in Midtown, and I believe that's where one of the bands was playing that evening. They said that the unexplained gap that they're concerned about is between 3:30 and 10 a.m. And what they wanted to know what she was doing then. I'm more curious what happened after 10 p.m. if we're trying to actually find her. Karen and Kirsten's stepfather, Pete St. Mary, went to Memphis in 2001 to talk with Brent and Tolly and left unsatisfied. Brent personally thought that she had overdosed because of her lifestyle. Private investigators and the Missing Persons Bureau posted flyers around the Cooper Young area of Midtown. And then that morning, Josh was nursing a hangover and his car wouldn't start, so he had asked Tolly for the keys to his van. They had breakfast at a coffee shop and went back to Tolly's brother's apartment so Josh could shower. Kirsten stayed in the van with the heater on to stay warm. So if she did steal it, why didn't she take it the first chance she got in the morning versus later on in the afternoon? Kirsten was allegedly looking for a big house when they set off after his shower. The house was set back a ways off the road, and she told Josh it was either her mom or her grandparents' place, and that, quote, nobody will be home, unquote. Roads were snowy and slick, and Kirsten was displaying bizarre behavior, happy, sad, crying, danced in her seat, asked Josh to pull over and flirted with him, which he said he turned down. When they made it to Brent's, the streetlights were on and it was dark outside. She drove around the block, almost hit Josh when he was trying to catch her. Josh also worked at a granite shop. Josh was surprised that she didn't get into a wreck right off the bat, because of the way the road conditions were that day. When I was looking around, the closest water body now is surrounded. Otherwise, you have to go out a few miles before you can find any water to get into. Brent's remembering of the day was that he woke up to a winter wonderland. He looked out the window and a girl across the street invited him over for hot chocolate. He accepted, and then he looked out her window around noon when Tolly's van pulled up, and that was the last time that Brent saw her. He said that he got a call around 2 p.m. from Sean, and then in parentheses it says Toland or Josh. So I'm wondering if his middle initial is S, so I wonder if his full name is Bradford Sean Toland. So it would be Tolly and Josh were in the van. He couldn't remember which one at any rate, saying which one had called him, saying that Kirsten had stolen Sean's minivan. I think they said something like they were getting out at the gas station and she had taken the car. If what Brent says is now true, that Kirsten was with Josh and Tolly New Year's Day and stole the van when they were at the gas station around 2, then Josh's story can't be true. If what Josh says is now true, that he alone drove Kirsten around for several hours, and she stole the van after dark on Brent's street, then Brent's story can't be true. For a long time, Josh Anders, Bradford S. Toland, and Brent Wolverton were not totally unlike Kirsten. They had all disappeared, at least to police. Let's see here. So, in 2008, Josh claimed Kirsten stole the van from a Midtown street after dark on New Year's Day when they stopped to see if Brent was home. The weather that day. The high was 22 degrees Fahrenheit. The low was 12 at 7 a.m. And then the sunset was at 5 p.m. Weather Spark said they accumulated 2 inches. Not a big deal up in Minnesota. It could be totally different. They might not have the big plow trucks down in Tennessee. So I had a few questions for any of her family or friends. If they know any of these answers, that would be great if they can contact me. The first one, does she prefer to drive on main roads or back roads? Do they do road construction down there in the winter? I don't know if they get snow that stops them from doing it or if they put theirs on hold during winter. And then if there is road construction, was she familiar with detours that she may have had to been taken? Were the license plate readers checked? Were there any items that she always carried? What I remember, she had on a red mini dress and a lightweight jacket. She didn't have any money. I'm assuming she didn't have her purse. But did she maybe carry stuff that she would have had in her jacket pockets that we could look for as well? And then what were the exact addresses of the parties? Her boyfriend's apartment on Clark, her home address in Orange Mound, and her dad's address. She may have been trying to drive back to one of them that we could look for if there's water around there. And then what gas stations did they stop at on the 1st? And then I made some slides to hopefully keep everything separated. Kirsten lived with Earl Burgess in Orange Mound. It's southeast, just a couple miles from Midtown. And he saw Earl saw Kirsten on New Year's Eve when she left for Midtown. Her boyfriend, Brent Wolverton, lived on Clark Place. I had the wrong word. Lived on Clark Place, and he went back to his apartment after the parties. Josh Anders couldn't get his car to start in the morning, so borrowed Tolly's van. Both of the parties were on Avalon in Midtown, near Poplar. And then Kristen was spotted at Poplar and Highland in Midtown when she was driving. And then she had spent the night at Tolly's brother Bobby's apartment in Midtown with Josh Anders and Bradford Tolly. The areas I would like to search first would be the Kilowatt Lake, the Wolf River, and the Wolf Harbor, Leith Bayou, Quincy Bayou, the Mississippi River, McKellar Lake, Riverside Bayou. And then I looked, it's 11 miles from Memphis to the Mississippi state line. And then from there we could look at Greensbrook Lake, Mud Lake, and North Horn Lake. If you'd like to help Kristen's family find her, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and ring the notification bell to receive progress reports. Please let me know in the comments section if you see something that I missed. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and remember that we love you.